Hello everybody and welcome back to the next video in our how to make an avatar series. So if you have been following along with the series, you know that we are at the point of the very dreadfully long toggle video. I kind of went on a little ramble at the end of last video, so I apologize if you were here for that. This is a video that I have been very, very nervous about because it is going to be quite long. And as I've been going through and recording these tutorial videos, I've noticed that there are, of course, there's tons of other tutorials out there and all by amazing creators and people. But I did start to get more and more nervous because I know a lot of other tutorial videos on like how to make toggles are a lot shorter, I feel like, than I feel like this one might be. And I might be wrong. Maybe this video won't be super long. But as I've said at the beginning of the series, the last time I made this series was like 2 years ago. So when I decided to remake this series, I wanted it to be as in-depth and descriptive as I possibly could be so that I had full confidence that this series covered every tip and trick that I know at this current moment, as well as was really in-depth and detailed so that I felt like it had a better chance to cover any questions people might have or any errors people might run into or anything like that, because I feel like my first series I focused too much on making it like super beginner friendly, which I still hope that this series is beginner friendly, but I also wanted to try to include a little bit of extra stuff just to kind of help teach some, like I said, just tips and tricks and different ways of doing things early on so that a way you know, the answers are here for you guys if you ever run into those. So as I've been saying, this video is going to be multiple different types of toggles and 2 different ways of creating the toggles. We're going to be doing it traditionally, setting everything up manually. And then we're going to be using a tool, the second half of the video, called AV3 Creator, which will do it automatically, which is a paid for tool. And I will have that linked below in the description, as well as the creator of the tool. I will have their Discord linked down below. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that I can about the tool, but I do think that joining their server will probably be your best bet if you have any questions or run into any bugs, because of course it is their tool and not mine. So if there's ever a question I can't answer, if it is giving you like a true bug or an error, I would definitely recommend joining their server and reaching out. They're super duper helpful creators. I've reached out to them quite a few times myself. So with that being said, I just want to apologize one more time that this video is most likely going to be pretty long, because I don't want to do just an on-off toggle tutorial and just like move on. We're going to learn on-off. So for like the hat only goes on or off. We're going to learn either or. So for like our hair, we have either the long ponytail or the hair ponytail. So for if you have like, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, clothing tops or hairs or whatever, then I'll show you guys how to like switch between those. We're going to do matte swaps, radials, hue shifts, pretty much any type of toggle that you will need for your avatar. We're going to cover all those options both ways, traditionally and through AV3 Creator, because I know quite a few friends of mine that have recently gotten AV3 Creator and aren't the most familiar with how to use it yet. So I wanted to be able to include this or how to use that tool in this specific tutorial so that, you know, if anyone wants to try to figure out how to learn AV3 Creator, you can just skip forward to the timestamp for that tool and I'll have a tutorial on how to use it. So we will also test our toggles with Gesture Manager. So before you like really jump into creating your toggles, I definitely recommend and highly suggest that you go ahead and install Gesture Manager via your Creator Companion, because that is how we're going to test all of our toggles. As well as I will put a link down below for a tool called the Check Move. That's what I call it, at least. And it's on Booth, it's free. And we're going to use that at the very, very end. It's an animation that we're going to put onto our avatar that's going to make the avatar pose in different directions. And we're going to flip through our toggles while it's posing. So that way we can check for clipping. I think that with Gesture Manager and this tool, the Check Move tool, it's going to be a great way to check for any clipping before we get into VR. Of course, as you get in VR, you might find more stuff and you need to go back, but you know, there's of course ways to test it in Unity so you don't have to get in and out of VR. So once we do all of that, then the next video we will cover going back into Blender and updating anything that we need to, and we'll actually be able to start wrapping up the tutorial series. So there's going to be quite a lot that we're going to cover today, but don't stress if you only need to skip to a specific part. I will have everything time-stamped down in the description and broken up into sections that you can just, hover over the bottom of the screen and skip forward to the section that you need, just like the rest of the videos. So, with the majority of my other videos, so if you need to skip around, feel free to do so. But that is the order that this video will go in, and I hope that kind of helps you guys prepare for what this tutorial is going to be and where you might need to go to, learn specific things if that's what you need to do, or you can watch the whole thing and learn all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, going to be learning a lot. Obviously, I'm very nervous about it. I apologize in advance, but let's go ahead and just jump straight into it and get started. Sorry. I completely forgot that I had my Streamlabs pulled up on the wrong monitor, so I apologize about that. So yeah, I'm gonna try my best to stay organized, stay on track, but there is a lot, and I am very ADHD, easily sidetracked, as you guys know, so I apologize if it is a lot, or if I bounce around. I will do my absolute best to stay on track as much as I possibly can. So to get started with toggles, like I said, we're going to start with the traditional way. There's so much to do to get started for that. I'm just going to, I've always said this throughout the series, I just want to reiterate, this is just how I do things. You can go in a different order. You can do things and set things up differently. You can organize things differently, whatever you want. This is just how I do it. So first things first, I personally recommend Control D on your avatar, hide your avatar, and go to this duplicate one and name it something that you're going to know is not your avatar. It's not the duplicated one. So I normally name my second one anims for animations. The reason why I recommend this is I just learned a long time ago that you're not supposed to animate and record stuff on your actual avatar, because whenever we go into animation, we start recording stuff, it goes into bicycle pose. And sometimes if you are working on your avatar for, I guess, too long, or if Unity just decides to be Unity and just decides to break, your avatar will get stuck like that. And it's really, really, really hard to get it unstuck. So the reason why I make a duplicate and I record all my animations on there is just in case that happens, then I have my original one saved up here that was never animated on, and she's still going to be vibing in her T-pose and she'll be good to go. So I personally recommend creating a duplicate. I know some creators say that it's perfectly fine to animate on the avatar. You're more than welcome to try that. I've just run into issues with it before, and I know other people have as well. So I always recommend doing it on a duplicate so that you don't worry about messing up your actual avatar. So that is the first thing. Before we get started finding everything, I think I mentioned this quite a few videos ago, but I would recommend making a second folder. I call it 3.0 because that's just what it's called for doing toggles in the type of manner that we're doing it. It's called 3.0. So I normally make it. I will have to show you guys later, but AV3 Creator will make all these folders for you if you don't have them yourself. So whenever we get to that part of the video, I'll show you guys how it can do that. If that's what you want to let it do, if you're using AV3, go for it. If not, then just make your own. If you want to, you don't have to. I find it easier if I have everything sectioned out. So I'm going to make a folder in my 3.0 for my animations, my actual recordings. I'm going to do my menus, and I think that's it, because I don't really use one for, no, I do actually. So let's go ahead and let's do, I think it's called layers. Well, that's what we're going to call it. So like I said, AV3 will make these for you. I like them there as well. It helps me navigate things whenever it comes time to set stuff with layers. So, first things first, we need on our avatar a descriptor. So I'm already bouncing around. I'm so sorry, but we need a descriptor. You can't make toggles or do anything like it without one. So we're going to type it in vrchat avatar descriptor. And let's go ahead and set this up real quick. And then we will like go searching for our FX enhance layer, which is what we're going to need to actually get started on the toggles, but the toggles, but we're going to need this to actually be able to apply the toggles to the avatar. So let's go ahead and do this first. If you're using AV3 Creator, of course, we'll cover this later. If it doesn't have a descriptor for it, it'll say like, please add a descriptor or something. So you'll need to add it there first, and then it'll say like autofill, but we'll cover that later. So if you don't have it, go ahead and add it, regardless of if you're doing toggles the traditional way or with AV3. This viewport, you're going to have to scroll out to find it, is this little ball. We're going to click edit, and we're going to move it down to the center of the eyes. And this is basically where you're telling your VR headset that is the middle of your eyes. Like this is where that ball is, where your eyesight, like in real life, is going to be coming from the avatar. So if you move it down here, then you're going to be looking through her mouth. So if other people are like trying to make eye contact with you, or they go to like poke your eye or something, like they're going to do it up there, and you're going to think they're reaching above your head. So you want to keep it between the eyes and kind of a little bit in the head. Don't have to be much, just a little bit. I just feel like that having it kind of inwards kind of helps it stay more accurate. I don't know, it's just a preference thing, I guess, but adjust it where you need it to be. If you ever get into VR and you notice that you have the descriptor where it's supposed to be, or the viewport where it's supposed to be, but you're seeing her way above her head or way below, a common issue with Zenpia's latest bases, which are the VR bases, which this one uses, is for the heeled version, the heels, like the bones for the feet, are like way up here. And you'll notice that her feet, since she's using flat feet, are in the axis here of Unity. They're in the floor. So if you ever run into that, that is something that you'll want to update in Blender if you're using the healed version. So basically the feet bones need to be like touching the floor. And if not, then that's basically what's happening, is you'll put the descriptor where it is for your avatar, but then because the armature is not on the floor, it kind of moves your avatar down and the descriptor up, and it offsets it. So if you ever run into that issue, then that's how to fix that. It should be the only issue that you ever really run into with the viewport. So now that that's on, I'm going to turn off the gizmos because it just makes my computer run really slow. Then we're going to do lip sync, blend shapes, and it uses the head blend shapes, and it should autofill. If it does it, you'll just extend it down and you'll add what you need to, and it's always going to be the VRC dot ones. So it should look something like this. So lip sync is now set up. You can set up eye look, which if I come in here and I do left, oops. Oh, right. I forgot. So since I have a duplicate one, it's registering it twice. So I'm just going to extend this one down. I think it's underscore that works. If not, then I'm going to show you guys how it does funny things. Yep. So see how whenever I click, like looking up and now the eyes are like vanishing? That's because it's on these bones. So I actually need it to be where it's spelled out left eye and right eye. And now it's not doing it. So I'm going to turn this back on. And I'm going to take these and I'm just going to rotate the eyes to look up, to look down, left. Wait, why is it? No. I don't want it to do all of them. There we go. Just left. And then right. Normally this is something I do before I start my fizz bones or anything because it's just a lot for my eyeballs. But I kind of forgot about it. So, but yeah, now her eye tracking is set up. Of course, if you have face tracking, I don't know how that works, but if you don't have face tracking, then this is how you let your eyes like look around. you don't need to mess with that at all. Just these ones. And like I said, if you ever like go to fix it and the eyes like roll backwards, just change the eye bones to the other ones that you're not using. Eyelid type, I'm going to put on blend shapes and have our head. And this is where we can set up like the blink. And then if your avatar comes with like a look up option for like the blend shape, which I don't think this one does. Yeah, this one doesn't. Then you can set those up. And if not, you can just change them to none. So then that way, when she's looking up or down, it's just her eyes. Now some of the heads will like have the eyelids like kind of move down a little bit, so it's a little bit more natural looking. And then of course the blink. I am actually going to take off this eyelid type though for my personal avatar, because we are going to set up an idle blink animation later. Like we are going to do for the idle wings, which is going to be like a separate video that I'm going to like link after this one. Like, I don't know, it's going to be separate, but it's still something I'm going to be making for the tutorial, and I'll link to the tutorial series. But I just want the idle animations for like the blink and the wings to be a separate video, because I know quite a lot of people have asked how to do that, so I want it to be its own standalone. But since we're going to be setting that up, I'm personally leaving the blend shapes for the blinks to be none, so that it doesn't conflict with that. But if you're not setting up like a custom blink animation or anything, then that's how you'll set up your blinking. And I'm going to minimize that. And then this lower body stuff you don't really need to mess with, but this expressions is where we're going to be starting to mess around with our and the playable layers. So both of those are going to be where we're going to start setting up our toggles. So I need that open for now, and now we have to go searching for our controller. So there is a specific controller that comes with the SDK for vrchat. That is what registers the hand movements, and you basically have to make your toggles on that so that when your hands move, you can use your facial expressions and that your hands move at all. So we have to go searching for that. Now I'm gonna kind of fast forward because it's been a very long time since I've gone manually searching for it, so I need to go figure out how to find it real quick, and then I'll come back and show you guys how we found it. Okay, so it was actually pretty easy. I wasn't too sure if it was going to work, so I wanted to cut that out just in case. It's somewhere. It is I think it's in like this folder, the SDK avatars like folder itself. But what I recommend doing is just coming over here to this search bar. I just typed in hands. It defaults to, I think, in assets. So if you're not seeing it, come over here to all, click that, and then it'll pop up. And what you're looking for is this little like 3 squares things. So this is what's called a layer, and you're gonna want to read down here. So if you notice, this one says hands layer 2, and this one says just hands layer. That's the one that we're actually gonna want. So we're going to Control D, duplicate that to where it says hands layer 1, because we want to leave the original one there just kind of as like a safety precaution so we don't mess anything up on the back end. And I'm going to rename this to FX. Alright, so this is our FX layer. You can name it to whatever you want to. I just know majority of people name it FX because that's what it is over here. So if you go back to your descriptor under playable layers, like I said, if you're not seeing it, you're going to want to hit customize, and then it's FX. So we'll click there, we'll drag that in, and now it's assigned. So this is what we're going to be doing all of our toggles on. If you double click it, it'll look something like this. That is something that we're going to get to later. But I do want to just kind of recommend maybe double clicking it to make sure that you have the right thing. What you're looking for is for 3 things over here on the side to say all parts, left hand and right hand. And those have this like fist open point. It has all your hand gestures that you're used to. So as long as you have that, then you're good to go. So I'm going to go back to our avatar, hide it, and I'm going to open up our animations one so that we can get started. Totally up to you on if you want to record on the FX layer or if you want to make a new one. I personally make a new one because the reason is if I don't, then every animation that we're going to do is going to show up here in this all parts section, and I'll have to go through and delete it, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just something that I tend to forget about pretty often, and I don't want to have to worry about forgetting it, because if I do, then it's going to cause problems. So I'm going to actually make a second one. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to create an animator controller, and I'm going to call this main toggles. So if I click on this one, you'll notice that it just says base layer. It does not have the hands layer or the all parts layer, and that's the reason why we have to go searching for that specific one to be our actual main FX that's assigned to our avatar, because if we don't, then we won't have anything to work with our hands. So that's why. So I'm going to take this main toggle ones, and I'm going to drag it onto our anim's avatar. So the reason, again, why I suggest duplicating your avatar is if you notice right here, it says controller, and it has that in there now, versus our main one doesn't. That controller having something in it is often why your avatar will get stuck in bicycle pose. So if you ever are messing around with your avatar, and or even your anim's one, and you're like, oh, it won't get out of bicycle pose, that's the first thing that you'll want to check that there's a controller on it. And if there is, you can just click that dot and click none. So you'll want to remove that. But for this, we actually do want her to go into bicycle pose, because that's going to indicate that we are doing animations. So to get started on our animations, I'm going to go ahead and extend that down so we can see everything that we're working with. And we're going to head over to the animation tab. Now there's nothing here. Two different ways that you can get started with making your animations for your toggles. You can come to the animations tab and click this button where it says create. Or you can come over here. Like I said, make folders for everything. So wherever you feel like keeping it, you're just going to right click, go to create. And right below where we clicked animator controller a minute ago, we're going to click animation. And name it whatever you want. Just name it something that is going to be easy for you to know what is happening. So we're not going to do every single toggle on my avatar, because that's just really repetitive. So we're just going to do a few, since there is going to be a lot that this specific video is covering, so that I can just show you guys all the different things. So the first one that we're going to do is a on-off toggle. So very, very simple of turn this thing on, turn this thing off. I'm going to do two of these just so that things aren't confusing. So first we're going to do choker, and then we're going to do the hat. And the reason that we're going to do two separate ones is choker is very basic, but the hat, we have our hair blend shapes that we made for whenever our hat is on versus off. And I want to be able to show you guys how to, what the difference would be. It's a very, very small difference, but I just want y'all to have multiple examples. So I'm going to name this one choker on. I'm going to Control D duplicate it. And we're just going to name this one off. And then we're going to duplicate it 2 more times. And rename for hat on and hat off. Okay, so you can make your animations for however many times that you need. But for, obviously your on-off animations, you're going to want an on and an off, or for your on-off toggles, you're going to want one for each. And then for the either or, for like the hair. So if you're just switching between two, you'll do like, let me do this. So let's do ponytail on and long hair on, right? So those two are going to be our either or. So it's either going to be ponytail or the long hair. There's no other option. And then if you have a third one, then I'll show you guys how to set that up. And I'll do hair radial test, just so I can show you guys, if you have like 3 or 4 different hairs, a way that you can, add all of them into one animation, just to kind of keep things a little bit more simplified for you guys. And then we'll worry about like our material swaps and our decals and our hue shifts and all that kind of stuff later. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. So make the different animations for however many times you need. And of course, if you ever make too many or you need more, you can always come back. So these are the ones that we're going to start with. So I'm going to highlight all of them, and I'm just going to drag them onto our anim's avatar. And basically what that's doing is, since these are animations, and earlier when we made the like a quote unquote duplicate FX, even though it's not. We made that animator controller. It basically just assigned all of those animations to this controller. So if I take off this controller, those animations won't be there. But since I made them assigned, now whenever we go back to the animation tab, they're all showing up here. So very, very important. It's something that I do a lot just to kind of help me stay more organized and not so chaotic, is I'll make multiple different controllers. So right now I have a controller for the main toggles that we made. Whenever I go to do the matte swaps for like the different hair colors and skin tones and hue shifts, I'll make a second one, just so that it's a little bit easier, because this doesn't let you like scroll down. There's going to be like a little arrow that you would have to click a whole bunch of times, and it can get really, really frustrating. So I make multiple controllers just so I don't have to deal with that, and everything's a little bit easier for me to find what I need. There's not really a need for that though, but I just wanted to point that out there so that whenever we do go to make a second controller and it's going to say like matte swaps or whatever, you'll just so that you guys can understand that whenever we go to do that, we assign those animations, that these ones right here for like the hair, the choker, the hat, won't be showing up on the second controller when we make that. So just keep in mind, whatever animations you assign to the controller that you have on your avatar are only going to be on that controller. So if you make another controller, they won't show up. I hope I didn't confuse anyone by saying any of that, and I'm so sorry. So I think first, let's go ahead and just do things like basic, and then I'll show you guys how to make it into a dissolve if you want. Because like I said, this video is going to be long, it's going to be descriptive, and that's because I want to show you as many different options as there are so that you guys kind of have one video for everything that involves toggles, and then you can just fast forward, rewind to whatever parts you might need in the future. So right now, and we want the default to be on. So this is very important. What you want your default to be is important for once you get finished recording your animations, for how you're going to want things set up. So just kind of keep that in mind whenever you're making your animations and you're naming them. So like I'm naming this one choker off. I want the default to be on. So right now I'm going to make the opposite of that, and then I'll make the default. So just, I hope again that that's not overwhelming anyone. Just kind of keep that in the back of your mind because it will be important. So the last thing that you want to do is make your animation titled one thing and then make it the opposite because you were thinking that you wanted it to be your default. So just stay aware. And I'm sorry, I'm probably making it sound more confusing than I mean to. Just keep it in the back of your mind. What you named your animation, what that animation is supposed to be for, and what you're going to want things to do later. So I think is the best way I can wrap that up without digging myself into a deeper hole. So I'm going to click the record button to get started. And as you can see, she went straight into her little bicycle pose. And this animation is for the choker to turn off. So right now we're on the very first frame. That's what all these are. These are different frames. And if you scroll out, it will go for infinity pretty much. It'll go for ages. But this, these are all milliseconds right now. So this one, you see right here, it says 60. So that's 60 seconds. Or 60 milliseconds. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. So this is technically 1 full second. This is 2 seconds, 3, and so on. These are not minutes. So do keep that in mind. And the reason why that we're going to keep that in mind is for whenever we go to add our dissolves and our idles and things like that. But for right now, I'm just going to show you guys the regular like on off, and then I'll show you guys how you can add dissolve if you want to. So since we're wanting it to be off, we're on the very first frame of this animation, we're actually going to want to come over one. And we're going to come up here to our little check mark where our choker is, and we're going to boop that off. And if you see down here, it added these recordings. So these are technically the animations themselves. And if we come back over here, the default is that it's on. Pardon me. So you can manually do this if you want, but I just find that starting over one makes things a little bit easier, because since we started over here, we turned it off, then that automatically makes it beginning the opposite of what we just told it to do, if that makes sense. So since we moved over here and we told it, hey, I want this animation to end result with the choker being off, that means that it's going to start with the choker on. So basically, if we hit, well, we can't hit play since it's just a millisecond long. But whenever this animation is playing, it's going to play like that, right? It's going to play to where it's taking the choker off, which is what we want it to do. So that's how you'll make it off, and then you come over to your on and you do the complete opposite. So right now it is on, so we'll start here and we'll turn it off, come over frame and turn it on, right? So again, just like I said when I was kind of rambling earlier, is keep in mind what you want your animation to do and think of it as like you're playing a movie. So when I play choker on, I want it to turn the choker on and vice versa. So I want the start to be the opposite so that when it plays, it does what I'm wanting it to do. So that's how you make an on-off. You'll just make them opposites, right? So that you have one for turning it off, one for turning it on. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to do dissolve real quick, because it's not very complicated and it doesn't really change anything in terms of like actually like setting up the toggles. It's more of just this recording process I'd like to show you. But real quick, if you guys notice over here, I have my material, which this choker shares the same material that the harness does, but it is not locked. And if you guys remember from when we were making our tutorials, oh my goodness, I cannot speak today. When we were making our materials, I had talked to you guys about like for the emissions, like having this RA for the hue shift, and for the decals having that, so that I had explained was for whenever it's locked that it records, and we turned it on during the thigh like material settings to have custom naming when it's locked. So that's very important. If you do go to set up dissolve toggles, your materials have to be locked for it to work properly. And the reason being is if we come down here to dissolve and we turn it on, takes a minute because my computer's very slow. Well, while it's loading, for dissolves, two things. Your material has to be set to cutout. And you turn on your dissolves, and you'll come down here to dissolve noise and type in noise. And then you'll pick whatever you want. So this is basically like the map that it's going to run over to do your dissolve. So this is pretty much how it's going to dissolve. And since she's very techie, I kind of want something techie, so I'm going to pick this one. And you're going to come down to dissolved color. And right here where it says A, you're going to drag that all the way down. So basically you're telling it to go from color to invisible pretty much. So if we do dissolve alpha, see? If we go slow, you can see that kind of, right? I'm not entirely too sure. I think maybe just because it's not locked, why it's like flashing for that split second. It might just be the noise though, because that's turned down. And let's turn this to like a gold. You can just kind of fiddle around with your settings here. And it also does matter like what the UV is as well. Because sometimes the UVs don't quite work as well, which I think might be the case for this one. Oh, nope, there we go. We got it now. Oh, no, if it still happens. Oh, well, it's okay. So yeah, just kind of fiddle around with the settings that you want. So like I said, the noise is that map that it's following. See how it's kind of like breaking up right there? Of course, you have your edge, like width and your strength and your emission and stuff, which you can see right there is what it's doing. I think I'm going to turn the hardness down just a hair so it's a little bit smoother. And then your dissolve alpha. So for dissolves, your material needs to be set on cutout, and you come down to dissolve and set it up how you want. Make sure your dissolved color is turned all the way down, and dissolve alpha, right click and click renamed, right? So then you're going to have to go through and you're going to want to lock your material. So for dissolves, that's super important, but especially for pretty much anything that you're wanting to do, like hue shifts or decals, matte swaps, that kind of stuff, you're going to want to lock it. So I think it's just a safe bet to always lock your materials. So you can come through and highlight all of your materials, right click, go to Fry, Materials, and click Lock All. And it's going to take a second, and it's going to go through and lock everything. And the reason that this is so important whenever you go to make your toggles, especially for like dissolves and stuff, is especially for like I've said before, we have multiple decals, multiple hue shifts on one mesh. So having that renamed when locked is going to tell it to basically, like whenever we go to record our animation, it's going to say like, okay, for decal 1 hue shift is active for this specific toggle, versus for this specific toggle it's decal 2's hue shift. And it can't do any of that unless you have the renamed when locked active, which is that RA, and unless the material is actually locked. So if you record like something like a hue shift or a toggle or a dissolve and it's working during your animation, but then you go to test it later and it's not working, that is most likely what happened. Is you probably recorded the animation for the dissolve or the hue shift or whatever when the material was not locked. I have run into that issue 1,010,000 times. So keep that in mind, for whenever you're doing any of this, that if something's working down here whenever you're testing your animations and then it's not later, that your material probably wasn't locked. So now you'll see that it is locked, but if we come back down, our dissolved is still, we can still mess around with it, but nothing else we can't touch, which is why it is important to click that, to tell it to be animated whenever it's locked so that we can still mess with it. So for our choker, right, we have our typical off. If you want to set up dissolves, and I will section this off in case, you don't want to learn dissolves, because like I said, it doesn't really affect how the toggle itself is made as much as it does the animation. So for just a basic like snap on and off, you just need these 2 frames. To do a dissolve, you actually need to come out. Most people, including me, and by default, I think AV3 Creator will do it as well. It normally does it to a 1 second animation, so we're going to drag it all the way over to 1. So right now, it's just, if we hit play, it's just going to take that 1 second and it's just going to go, right? And we're starting on and off. You're just not seeing it turn off because it's replaying, so it happens so quick. For dissolves, things get a little bit backwards, so I'm just going to do it. Try not to over-explain it and confuse people. So, with our off animation, we want it to start with the dissolve being all the way down because we don't want it to dissolve anywhere. We want to end with it being all the way up. So what's going to happen is it's going to play the whoop, right? And then since the choker is off, you still want to make sure that your actual mesh is being toggled off. Because if you leave it on, then that's going to register it on, but just the dissolve is up. And the best way I can explain why that's an issue is that Unity and vrchat and everything is registering that a mesh is there, but it's not actually showing anything, and that can cause a lot of glitching with like your materials and stuff later. So make sure that you still leave your animation to, or your mesh to be toggled off. So this is what you want it to look like if you're doing dissolves. Your mesh is on, your dissolve is set down to 0, and as it goes, it does its thing, and it ends with the dissolve being all the way up and the mesh being off. Now, if you want to, you're always welcome to come through and like fiddle with, the animations. If you want something to happen earlier, just, know that it might stay like that. So I personally recommend just kind of letting it play through. I'm still not entirely sure why it's like highlighting it like that, but I think it's just because of the map and it being such a small UV, because you see it's not really happening down here on the harness. With like smaller UVs and meshes, that's basically what's happening, is it's so small on that map that whenever it's trying to play over it, it ends up highlighting it completely, but that's okay. Oh, it's not happening on the harness because it's locked. I'm so sorry. Ignore me when I said that. My point still stands though. It does happen with like smaller things. So that's for off, and then we can come to on, and we're going to do the opposite thing. So we are going to scroll back out. Give me a second to get there. All right. We're going to take this all the way to our 1, and the choker is on. So before we had it going from off to on. When you add dissolves, this is when I said it gets a little bit backwards. You actually want it to be toggled on with your dissolve all the way up. So now the reason why that's backwards with dissolves is kind of like I was saying earlier with like it being active but there's no material. Since you're doing dissolves but you're wanting the choker to be on, you're wanting to tell the game, hey, the choker is there. It's going to turn on, but the way it's going to turn on this time is turn that down by dissolving in. So see, now it's the opposite. So now it slowly closes up that little like dissolve animation, I guess, and then it stays on. It doesn't have to be a second long animation. It can be as quick or as slow as you want it to be, but that is how you set up toggles or dissolve toggles. So just the only difference when it comes to setting up dissolves is, you need it to be more than just a millisecond long. Set up your dissolves and your material has to be set up for it, but then on your on animation, the mesh needs to be on for both frames. And that's pretty much it. And then you just add your dissolve alpha and you're good to go. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the hat on off toggle, which I will also set up to be dissolve. I think actually I don't think we'll set up the hat to be dissolved, because the hat we're going to be learning how to add the blend shapes to it, and I don't want to get overwhelming with anyone here. And I actually don't think I would want it to dissolve anyway, because the hair blend shape being a thing, I don't want it to like show the blend shape like mid animation and then like everyone's like, oh, her hair is funny for a split second. It's super funny and I add it to my avatars all the time just for the memes and giggles, but I don't think for this one I want that. So I guess that's going to conclude the dissolve toggles part of this video. If you need to go back and rewatch it or frame it, I'll have this part sectioned off in the video so that it's a bit easier for you guys to find. But yeah, adding dissolves to your toggles is super duper easy. It's just adding that extra little element. But yeah, that's it. So onto the hat toggle. So same thing, I'm going to start with off, because I'm complicated like that. So the hat is on by default, but that's okay. That's something that we will tell Unity later. So I am going to click the hat, click over, 1, off, right? Just like before. Starts with on, moves to off. And then on our on animation, starts off, ends on. Same thing, right? Just a split second. Since this isn't a dissolve animation, I'm not going to make it the full 1 second long. It's just going to stay this pretty immediate toggle change. And always make sure that you have your record button going to do these things. And you'll know because things will show up in red. If things show up in blue, then that's just you previewing it. That's not you recording it. So just kind of keep that in mind. So now for the hat toggle, of course, whenever we toggle off the hat, we don't want the hair to be like that. So we added this blend shape in Blender so that the hair doesn't clip through the hat whenever the hat is on, but now we need it to do the opposite thing. So on our off animation, when the hat is off, we're going to click on our hair, and right over here where it says skinned mesh renderer, click blend shapes, and you're just going to toggle that all the way up. And just like I said before, since you're animating on the second frame, it's going to automatically add the opposite thing to the first frame. So it automatically said, oh, okay, so since that goes up to 100, the opposite of that is 0. So whenever the hat is on, that blend shape will stay at 0. When it goes off, the blend shape will jump all the way up and her hair looks normal. Now, since we have multiple hairs, we're going to need to do the same thing. The hair doesn't have to be active in the scene to show. You just click on it in your hierarchy and same thing. drag that all the way up. And now it's over here. So we see hair down, blend shape off, and ponytail, blend shape off, 0 and 100. Right? So now we'll do the opposite thing on our hat on animation. We will add the blend shapes to be active when the frame is with the hat off, and then when the hat is on, we will just turn that back down. Right? So that's pretty much it whenever it comes to on-off animations. So that's going to conclude the segment of on-off. So now we're going to move to either or. This one's pretty much the same thing, just very, very slightly different. So this is basically, we're going to set it up to where in the game you can say either ponytail hair or down hair, and we'll probably name the toggle something like hair swap. So it's just going to be one toggle, and they'll just click that, and each time they click it, it'll swap the hair between the ponytail and the down hair. And then, like I said, I'll show you guys a test here in a few minutes if you have like 3 hairs, or if you want like a bald option or something. I'll show you guys how you can do that on one animation. But for now, we're going to do an either or. So let's go ahead and start with the long hair on. Go into preview. So this is, again, playing our movie, our animation of we want the long hair to be on. So we're going to head over to our second frame, toggle on the down hair, right? But we want the ponytail to be off, so we're also going to toggle off the ponytail hair. And now, since we did it on the second frame, just like before, it's going to animate the first one off. And that's why I like doing this one first. Obviously, on animations for the hat, we animated both frames. So it's totally up to you if you want to animate both. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, just, again, think of it like a movie. When it plays, we want the long hair on. So we're just going to tell it to switch. So the down hair turns on, and the ponytail turns off, and it starts off, opposite, so that whenever it plays, it switches. And then we'll go over to our ponytail on and do the opposite, so it starts with it down and changes to it being on. And the reason why we need to add both hairs to both animations is, again, that this isn't picking between like 3 or 4 hairs. This is just between the 2, so that whenever we go to set up the toggle, there is physically no options for anything other than one or the other. Since all 4 frames that are between these 2 animations include both hairs, there's literally nothing that can happen to make her bald, unless we go through and we were to add that, of course. So that's it. On-off animations and either ors are very similar. And if you wanted these ones to be dissolves, it would be the same exact thing. You would just drag this all the way over, and you would say the down here, which I didn't set it up, but you would basically come through your dissolves and just tell it to dissolve the down hair off, and then you would turn on your ponytail hair and tell it to dissolve on. So it's the same, same exact thing, just that you would be having both dissolves instead of just the one. So yeah, and then we're going to do the multiple hairs, and to do that, let's make hair empty. I'm just going to drag this in here. So if I come to hair radial, right, let's turn off the hat. This is just in preview mode. As you can see, it's all blue and it didn't register that down here. I'm going to turn these up so that she don't look funny. Okay, so for the hair radial, let's say you had 3 or 4 hairs and you wanted to switch between them, or you wanted a bald option, which is pretty much what we're going to be recording with this one. You don't have to do multiple animations for this. You can do it all in one. And the important thing about this is for a radial specifically. So this is going to be just like a hue shift, like in game, it's going to be an actual radial, wheel, that as you switch between it, once it hits a certain percentage, it's going to change the hair. There's another way that you can do like multiples, like if you wanted it to be individual toggles, like you wanted it to say ponytail, down, bald, curly, short, whatever, and like you wanted them to all be individuals, there's a different way to do that, and I'll show you guys that later on once we get to that section. But I did want to show you guys this option first. So if we record it, we'll jump over and we'll say down ponytail, that's off, and that's off. So let's do hair empty. So that, and then we'll come over here and we'll do empty on, off, and off. So you can manually like click them like I just did, or you can click the frames, hit Control C, and you can Control V and then just edit the check marks. It's totally up to you. And as you see here, so our very first one, so it's going to start ponytail hair is check marked on, and then once it hits, you know, whatever percentage this would be on the radial, it's going to change to down hair. The other two are still toggled off, and then lastly it'll go bald and the other two are toggled off. So like if that was like short hair or something. So that's one way that you can do it. As a radial, it's a little bit more, I don't want to say like efficient, it's just quicker to set it up that way instead of the other way. But that's one way, and that's how you can add radials. And I've seen a lot of creators do this for like tops. Like they'll have like a tops radial just to kind of save like menu space. And you know, you can sit there and scroll through your radial and it'll change different tops, or it'll change species or pants or whatever. So radials are really fun. They're not just used for hue shifts and matte swaps. They can be used for assets like this. So I will show you guys, like I said, how to do it to where you could have them all individual toggles instead of on a radial. But that's going to be not on this like page, I guess. So I'll show you guys that whenever it comes time to actually setting up the toggles. We have all the animations we need for it. But if you, let's change this to, just for easy sake, so let's say that was an animation for our short hair. So basically, like if you have like, you know, like 3 hairs, you would go through on your animations and you would make one for each hair to be toggled on. So just like we did for the ponytail and the long hair, you would make one animation where this second frame is the short hair to be on while the other 2 are off. And then the ponytail, you know, you would make an animation for ponytail on, the other 2 are off, and then the long hair. So as long as it looks like this on all 3 of them, to where all 3 hairs are on every animation and just whichever one you need is set to 1 or checked marked, that's all you'll need. So keep that in mind for the future whenever we go to set that up. So that is it as far as like toggling objects. So we'll go through and we'll do the same thing for everything that we want toggled. And since this is going to be a public model, it's going to be everything except for her bikini, since that will be mesh cut and she can't go not safe for work. So we'll toggle off her shoes, her socks, pants, wings, jacket, and mask and horns and tail. So we'll do everything else pretty much. And, you know, depending on if I want it to be dissolve or not will depend on if I add that. But other than that, it's just kind of rinse and repeat, since she doesn't have anything that's an either or. Other than the gloves and the jacket. So the gloves and the jacket can't stack. So for those, I'll do the either or thing like I did for the ponytail, where I'll just record like the jacket on animation. We'll have gloves off and vice versa. Other than that, everything else will be just on-off animation. So that's how I would set that up. I think for now, I'm going to go ahead and put a pause on this, and I'm going to jump over to the AV3 Creator Toggles. Okay. I'm really sorry for the cut there. I don't know exactly how clean of a cut that was. I just talked for like 5 minutes and then realized that I want to completely do away with everything I said. And I was thinking about like moving to something different, but I think it would actually be a lot easier on you guys to go ahead and continue on the manual toggles before we jump to something else. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to continue on with the manual toggles. So I did make a menu and parameter. All you need to do is right click, create vrchat avatars, and they are both right here. So you're going to need both to continue on with manually making your toggles. I'm going to continue on with this and show you guys how to fully finish setting them up. And then we will jump over to the AV3 creator. I think we're going to do AV3 first and then move to the matte swaps and hue shifts, which might be a little bit out of order since we're going to like finish setting things up, but I think I kind of want to keep those separate since AV3 Creator can do both of those. I would rather like show you guys how to do that through there, and I don't know if that makes any sense, but I think that's what we're going to do for now, and then we will come back to the matte swaps and hue shifts. So I am sorry if that's kind of confusing for anyone, but I don't know, that's how my brain works. So let's say that you've gone through and you've made all of your toggles for everything and you've set up your menu and your parameters. So I'm going to turn off our animations avatar and go back to our normal one. And you're going to need to come down here and drag in your menu and parameters in this expression spot. And again, if you don't see it, there should be a button that says customize. Just click that. So this is what your descriptor needs to look like when it comes to like the playable layers section and the expressions section. You're going to need your FX layer, menu, and parameters. And we've got our animations made. So now, you know, I haven't obviously gone through and done everything since there's not really need to right now. But let's say you've gone through and you've set up everything that you need to, and it's time to go actually put them onto your avatar. So I personally, some people start with go ahead and setting it up in the menu. I personally start it with the FX or the parameters. And I'm going to do parameters first. You want to leave these. Don't touch those. You're going to click this plus sign. And you're just basically going to type in a parameter for everything that you need. It is very, very important how you type it in. Capitalization, spacing, punctuation, like the whole nine is super important because we're going to need to put the exact same thing into our FX layers for it to connect. If you have so much as like a single space or a single letter capitalized or not capitalized, difference between the FX and the parameters here in a few minutes, your toggles won't work. So if you ever go through and set up your toggles and you notice things aren't working, that's one of the first things I would suggest checking. So first I'm going to do hat toggle. This is not a float, this is a bool. So our on off and our either ors are going to be floats. The things like the matte swaps and the radials or the hue shifts will be a float. A float is what sets up your radial. But for our basic toggles, they are a bool. So we have hat and we have choker. And then we did make a hair. I'm going to call this hair either or. And then I'm going to show y'all the hair radial, which is the same exact setup that we're going to be doing for our matte swaps and decals and our hue shifts. But since I did show you guys how you could use assets on a radial, even though it's the same setup, I still want to go ahead and show you guys that now, and we can repeat the process again later. And then I will show you guys how to do the thing where I said for like the hairs where it'll be individual toggles. So we're going to set that up as like hair individuals. That one is going to be an integer. I just kind of want to explain this one more time real quick before we move on, because I don't want it to be potentially overwhelming. For anything that is on off or an either or, so anything that just has those two animations, like the choker on, the choker off, the hat on, hat off, those are bools. So anything that is just a one-time click for it to do what its thing. If you need something on a radial, like a hue shift, or like how we set up the animation for the hairs to be on a radial, that is a float. And then for the last thing where you have 3 or 4 different objects that you want to have their individual toggles, but they also act as an either or. So for like the hair, you want the ponytail hair or the long hair or the bald or the short or whatever you have on there, it still acts as an either or, but you want it to be individual, like visible toggles instead of just the one, which will kind of make a little bit more sense later whenever we go to set it up on our menus. Then that is an integer. So if you're getting confused on what you need to set up, I would recommend just kind of finishing out this section of the video and then going through and figuring out what you need to set everything up for what you're wanting things to do, because I think once you see it all together, it'll kind of make a bit more sense instead of trying to explain it right now when you can't really see anything. So that is what I'm going to leave her set up with right now as far as her parameters. I'm just going to open up my FX menu real quick, and up here we're going to head over to the parameters tab again. I'm going to come back to parameters. I'm just going to keep it open over here so I can see everything. Now, if sometimes like if you click off, it'll go away. If you need to, you can come up here and click this lock button. So now when I click off, it won't go anywhere. So we're basically going to copy and paste everything. This is, I double clicked the FX right here, and it opened up this. This is our FX technically opened. And like I said earlier, you guys would see the all parts left hand and right hand. And our parameters, it shows these gestures. Again, leave those. You don't need to mess with those. So we added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to add 5, but we need to make sure that we add them the exact same way. So we added bools first. So that's 1, 2, 3 bools. We did a single float and a single integer. And that's very important. You need to make sure that whenever you click plus, that you're making sure to select the right thing compared to what it is on the normal parameters list. And then you're going to want to name it the same thing, and since spacing and stuff is so important, I personally just copy and paste. And that way I don't have to worry about potentially accidentally leaving like an extra space somewhere without realizing it. Alright, so as long as they are identical, that is what will work. So now that those are synced up, and the reason that those need to be synced up is the parameters on the FX layer and the normal parameters are basically like talking to each other to tell it what it needs to function as, but now it needs to know what animations to play. So that's where you come over to this layers tab and you're going to click plus, and we have 5, so we're going to add 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I know the numbers are kind of weird because it starts off with nothing and then does a 0, but that's just how it functions. I don't know why. So first we did our hat layers. The naming of these layers is not important. It's only the parameters on that what is the naming is super important. So hair radial, and then the hair individually. Okay, so like I said earlier, if you ever make your toggles and then you realize like it's not working, and I said one of the first things you'll want to check is that your parameters are set up the same and spelled the same. The second thing that you would want to check is the weight of the layers. And that's this little gear icon. So you can see if you click it, it says weight 0. And see now that bar filled up. For your toggles to work, each layer needs to have the weight set all the way up to 1. So once that is set up, now we can actually go through and add in our animations. So for our hats, for our on-off animations, so for both the hat and the choker, the only difference between the two is the choker is a dissolve animation and the hat has the blend shapes attached to it. This is when I was talking about earlier on why it's important to remember what you're making your animations to make sure that they're playing how you want them to. And it's also important to know what you're wanting to be on as default. So just because the animation is called choker on, if I actually wanted the default to be the choker off, that's okay. I wouldn't need to change how I named those animations because those animations are still named appropriately, that the choker is being played to turn on and being played to turn off. So that doesn't really matter as far as default states as much as I lost it. There it is. As much as how it is whenever you come to set it up in the FX. But it is just important to know what you want to be default. So I want the choker and the hat both to be defaulted on. So I'm going to drag in the on animation first. If you accidentally drag in the off animation first, and it shows up as orange, that's okay. You can just right click on what you need to be the default and click set as layer default, and that will flip it over. So whatever you want your default to be is what you want to highlight in orange. So then once you have them both in, we have our on and off, and we want the default to be on. Right click it, make transition down, click on the off, make transition, and turn it back. So you want arrows to go both ways, right? So this is, think of it as like a circle where we just made a loop, right? So from on to off, I personally, on any transitions, always recommend turning exit time off and duration to 0. That just helps it to be more of a immediate change. If you leave those on, you might hit the toggle and it might take, quarter of a second or something to toggle off. And even though that doesn't sound like very long, since most creators, I think, do make their toggles, unless it's a dissolve toggle, to be immediate, then somebody might worry. If you're selling your avatars, a customer might worry that the toggle is not working, so then they'll click it multiple times, and then that can potentially break things, and it can just turn into a big mess. So I recommend turning the exit time off and the duration to 0. You don't have to, it's just what I recommend. So I do that on both, so I'll go ahead and do that so we don't have to worry about it. And then what you're going to do to actually make things work is your conditions down here. So we're going from on to off. We'll click this plus sign. This is where those parameters come in handy. If you're ever looking to set up your toggle and you notice you don't have something showing up here under your conditions, it's because you didn't set up a parameter in one or the other spots. I think it's the actual parameters spot, not the parameters here on the FX layer. So if you ever notice it's not working, you probably just forgot to make a parameter for it. So just go back and add it and then come back. But as you can see, here's all of the parameters that we made, and there's our hat toggle. So we're going to click that, and from on to off is true right now. I'd normally change it to false. All the true and false does, I always get it backwards, and so I'm so sorry if I'm telling you guys it backwards right now, but I think I've got it right. The only difference that does is basically in VR, whenever you have your toggles, you know how you'll be looking at a toggle and will have that little spinning animation, and then you'll hit that toggle and that spinning animation will go off. It's just, how do you want that spinning animation perceived? That spinning animation to me means that toggle is currently active. So if the hat is defaulted on, I don't want that spinning animation to be playing, because I want somebody to hit that and that toggles off the hat, and then the spinning animation starts to where it says that the hat has been toggled off. If that makes sense. If that doesn't make sense, that's okay. That's really all it is. To where if we left it to say true, then it would say hat and it would have the spinning toggle, meaning the hat is on, and then we click it and it's off, which might make more sense to some people. It's just really how your brain wants to perceive it. It's not super important. All that is important is that from the off to on animations, you're going to do the same thing, hat, but you want it to be the opposite of the other one. So now it's true. So if we click between the two, they're the exact same, except one says true and one says false. That's really it whenever it comes to making a toggle on the FX layer. You just make your transitions, set up your condition, and they need to be the opposite of true and false. Totally up to you which direction you want it to say true and which direction you want it to say false. Like I said, all that really does is it's just going to affect that little spinning animation, and how you want you or your potential customers to perceive it. So we're going to set up the choker toggle again, just to kind of give you guys a second example. So make transition to off, make transition on. Go through and turn off this stuff. Condition of choker, I prefer it to be set up this way, so I'm going to change that one to false, and then choker to be true. And that's it. So that's it when it comes to setting up the toggles on the FX layer. It's the exact same thing for the either or if you're only switching between two. So I want my default hair to be ponytail to be on. Whoops, that's the wrong thing. So I want my default for the ponytail to be on. And then when the toggle is activated, it changes to the long hair. Same thing. Exact same thing as setting up the on off. And again, this either or is only for 1 or 2. So if you're going between option 1 or option 2, it sets up the exact same way. You just make your transitions, set 1 to true, 1 to false, and you're done. Setting them up to be individually is a little bit different. We'll get to that in just a second. To set up a radial, which I think, okay, yeah, I named that the wrong thing. Let me make another one just so that I don't confuse ourselves. Okay, so earlier we had made everything on a hair radial where we went from ponytail to long to bald, right? So to make a radial, the same thing is going to apply for a hue shift. All you have to do is throw in that one animation, and you're going to come over here to the side where it says motion time, check mark that parameter, because we're telling it to do its motion basically off of the parameter, which if you remember, we set it to a float since we wanted it to be a radial. So you can see here, hair radial, and that's it. That is all you have to do to set up radials, whether you're setting up a hue shift or an asset radial like we did for this one, or a matte swap radial, which we'll do in a little bit. That's it. Just throw in your single animation, set the motion time, and you're done. The last thing for this part is the individual, which I just made a fake one for short hair just to kind of show you guys because I don't have multiple hairs past just the 2 on this avatar. So I can't directly show you guys, but I can show you how to set it up. So if you want to set it up, like I've said multiple times before, where you want it to have a physical toggle that you can see in game to where it says ponytail hair, short hair, or long hair, or whatever, and you don't want it on a radial, you want it to be one that they click, but it still acts as an either or so that the hairs don't stack. This is how you would set it up. So whenever and I'm sorry if there was a weird cut there. I had things super backwards in my head. I was thinking of something else that we're going to be doing later. So I'm backtracking that to set this up properly. So for hair individually, we have our animations here. You're still going to need to pick out which one you want as default, which right now is our ponytail. We're going to drag that in. And then we also want long hair, but we also want short hair, right? And then let's say we wanted curly hair. Just to give multiple examples. So these two don't actually have an animation, obviously, because I don't have anything on my avatar to show you guys that with. But let's say that you had 4 hairs and you wanted them to be able to be toggled individually instead of on a radial. You still have your default one set to whatever you want it to be. Instead of making transitions in between like you normally would, I don't want that, stop it. You're going to go from any state, right click, make. Do that to each one. And then you're going to click this guy. I still turn off my stuff. On every one. So what you're going to do is you're going to come down here to your conditions, hair individually, just like you did before. But instead, you'll notice instead of true or false, it says greater. If you click it, it says less, equal, or not equal. This is because we set these up, the parameters, to be an integer, is what it's called. So I always do equals for integers. You probably could use the other ones, but I'm not too familiar with those. So I always do equals. And since this is our default, we want that toggle to equal 0. We don't want it to be a toggle, right? It's not going to show up. But if we come down here and we do equals 1, and then go to our next hair, equals 2, and equals 3. All right, so you can make the ponytail one show up if you want to, but what I find easier is to leave that one not showing up as a toggle since it is the default. Let these 3 be toggles. And basically what we're going to do here in just a second is whenever we go to set up our menu, we're going to say that when, this button is clicked, it's going to equal this number, and that number is going to correspond to one of these hairs, right? Because we have this one is 1, short hair is 2, and curly is 3. So that is how you would set up if you didn't want it as a radial between like multiple different assets and you wanted them to show up as individual toggles, which kind of like lets us transition into the next part, which is setting up our menu. So if we click over here, come down to our menu, it's empty right now. You can set up however many sub menus you want to. I am just going to set up a few. So let's do like clothing, and let's do like hairs. Right. So this is your main menu. So whenever you first get your avatar and you first click over to expressions, this is what, everything is going to show up. So let's set this up to be hat. And we're going to hit it as toggle, and our parameter is of course our hat, right? So whenever you first open up your avatar menus, you're going to now see that toggle there. But if you wanted something to be a little bit more organized, like the choker, you wanted a section for all your accessories, ignoring the hat being an accessory, but you know what I mean. So instead of type being set to toggle, you're going to change that to submenu. You do not want your submenus to have a parameter. If your submenus aren't working, that's probably why. So a submenu is basically just another menu that we're going to tell it to lead somewhere else. So actually, let's keep it consistent, name it clothing. So, your first toggle you'll see will be hat, and then you'll see another toggle which you'll click, and that's whenever, it opens up another menu. That one's going to be called clothing. And then we want another sub menu. We're going to call it hair. Right? So now if we go into our clothing, double click that, we can add our choker. Which I can't type, choker. Toggle. Another thing you want to check if your toggles aren't working, especially if it's showing up and it works when you first click it and then it immediately toggles off, is if you have it set to button. So for how we're used to toggles working, you want to make sure that you change the type to toggle. But if you ever notice that happening, you probably just forgot to change it and it's defaulted to a button. That's happened to me more times than I can count. So another thing to keep an eye out for. And of course we want that to be our choker. And then you can add however many more, that you want to, keeping in mind that it does only go up to 8. So if you get, if you have 8 different clothing options already filled in, but you actually have 10 on your avatar, that's when you could potentially make another submenu. Submenus can just kind of keep going, as far as I'm aware of, for a really, really long time. So you could keep adding submenus into your clothing. You could say like clothing continued or shoes or whatever, and you could add those extra ones. Just keep in mind that your submenu is going to take up one of the sections. So if you have 8 already, maybe remove one, add a submenu there, and then put that 8th, 9th, and 10th option on that second submenu. And then we're going to go over to hairs, and we're going to add all of our hair options. So we have our hair either or. I'm just going to keep naming them consistently so that way you guys know. We have our hair radial, and okay, and then we have our hair individually, which I'm just going to toss down right here, and we'll come back to that in a second. So either or, same thing, toggle, and that's just our normal bool. That is, you're going to click it, and it's going to switch between ponytail and the long hair. Our hair radial, instead of toggle, you want to change it to radial puppet. And instead of parameter, you want to put rotation, radial. Okay? And then the hair individually is this setup, which is going to be a little bit different. So this is going to be kind of setting it up like the first either or, but different. So this is when you want it to show up individually, right? And since the ponytail is the default, we said that's not getting a number, so it actually starts with long hair. I really need to stop hitting enter. This is still going to be a toggle, hair individually, but now you notice that it shows up this this value underneath parameter, and it says 1. Well, that matches hair individually equals 1. So do you kind of see where this is going? So then if we hit another one and we do short hair, toggle, parameter set to individual, and then we change this value to 2 because that's what that one's set for. And then 3 would be curly hair. And you would just set that to 3. I'm realizing now, I wish I had made empties to like show you guys it toggling on or off over here. But I am so sorry I did not do that, but I will still demonstrate. So, forewarning, I'm not too sure if this is going to cause issues because I have the ponytail and long hair on all of these options, so it might cause issues since there's multiple toggles conflicting, but if I need to, I'll just come back and delete whatever I need to show you guys. But yeah, that's how you would set it up. So that is pretty much the end. I'm not going to put the timestamp here, but that is pretty much the end of setting up toggles manually. That's how we do our on-off, which is what we did for the hat and choker, either or, which is just going to automatically switch our radial, and then our individual, which you'll see here in just a second what that means. So now that we have it all set up and it's attached to our menus, we are good to go. Like that is the end of toggles. By this technicality, the avatar is done. You have your materials, you have your fizz bones, you have your toggles. If you wanted to add any extra stuff, of course you could. And like I said, I'm going to make a separate video for like the slow blink and the idle animations and things like that. But in this tutorial series, I'm still going to do like the go-go loco and fake index gestures, things like that. So we'll still have more for this avatar that I'm going to show you guys how to do. But by all technicalities, like you're good to go when it comes to toggles. Like you're done. What I highly recommend, like I said before, is installing Gesture Manager so that we can test. So I'm just going to save in case it crashes. But you come up here to Tools, Gesture Manager Emulator, and it pops up down here. You can click this or you can go into play mode, doesn't matter. But we're going to enter play mode, and now we're going to be able to test our toggles in Unity instead of having to boot up VR. And as you can see, things are already acting up. So, her hair is down, and I might have been completely wrong about the true-false thing, but I could have swore that I had that right. But it's always confused me. It's fine. So yeah, we can come over here to our gestures, and see, this is what I mean. There's the hat. And for some reason, it's also not toggled on, so I do think I have that backwards. I'll put in a note on the screen to tell you guys that I had that backwards. But I believe that what is causing that is the true-false thing that I thought was talking about the thing. So now you guys can kind of see it whenever we click it. So right now it's doing the false. And then we click it and it goes to true, which means the radial is spinning, but that also means that I should have, if we wanted it to be that way, I should have flipped the defaults. So instead, I'm just going to flip around the true and false, and so that way the hat defaults to on. But that's what it would look like if you set it up on the main menu, and then these are your sub menus. So if we come into clothing, there's our choker. As you can see, our dissolve is working. And then we come into our hair, and if we click either or, yeah, it's not one to work. Yeah, okay. Let me go fix that real quick. Basically having like multiple things for showing how to do the different like options for the toggles is throwing everything off. So let me go fix that real quick. Okay, so as you guys saw, I just went through and just flipped everything around for the true false. So now everything is where it's supposed to be. Everything that's supposed to be default is now defaulted. And I did have to delete the extra hair layers for now because it was throwing everything off. I'm hoping that'll be it. I might have to delete the parameters, but if I need to like do some editing and go back and forth, then I will, so that you guys can see. But if we come back in here and we click our either or, it changed, right? And then if we click it again, it just goes back to the ponytail. So that's how an either or works. And I think I forgot to turn off exit time. That's why it's taking a little bit. Yeah, and then we have our, we have our hat. So this is what I was talking about. So now like that, the on to off is set to true. It is actually defaulting to on as it should. And then whenever we click it, it's running, which means off, which can be confusing to people. So if you would prefer that the spinning means that the hat is on, you would leave it set to how we had it before, which is the first transition is false and the other one is true. But you would just flip the animations. So it's a little bit confusing. It's not super important, but I know some people care a lot about the spinny thing and what that means to them for a toggle. So now you know. So I'm just going to jump back real quick to show you guys the extra ways that you can do like how the toggle will work for how we set up the other ways for the hairs. So give me just a second, since I had to delete those layers since it was messing up the first one. So we can do here, radial, up, radial. Okay, so now we have our hair radial. So this has been deactivated since I deleted the layer. But now you can see it's on an actual radial menu. And if we come over here, that triggers our long hair. And then if we keep going, it'll trigger the imaginary third hair / bald option. So that is how a hair radial would work. And then let me show you guys how it would work if you did the integer version. Okay, so I just reset back up the layer that we had done for the hair individually, except I removed the imaginary curly hair. So imagining that those aren't there, ponytail does not have a toggle because it's on by default, but you would click long hair and it would change, or you would click short hair, which would toggle on the imaginary short hair. But the idea of it is that since all of those animations, so like since whenever we made the long hair animation, we had all three of those, and we had short hair toggled off and the ponytail toggled off, that they are both off, and so our long hair is on, right? And then it would be the same thing if we had a short hair, but then whenever you turn those off, the ponytail comes back on, which is why it doesn't have a toggle. And that's why whenever we set up the menus, we didn't give it one. We didn't give it a number or anything. To basically, that means that whenever these guys are off, it automatically goes back to the original default, which I'm really sorry. I didn't think to add a third hair to actually show you guys, or an empty over here. I didn't think about that to show you guys it actually toggling off, but that is the general idea of how you would be able to do like 4 hairs or something, or 4 different tops, or whatever you want to do. So just like a small, super duper duper small recap. Your on-offs animations, and I did, like I said, change these back to true and false, are very, very simple. The individuals for that, like last example, just need to be set up as an integer with it coming out from any state. And then your radials is just the radial itself with the motion time applied. So that is how you set up manual toggles. So I am going to mark the timestamp there. Okay, so I wanted to mark the timestamp there since that's pretty much everything I can think of as far as like how to set up manual toggles right now, except for hue shifts and matte swaps, which we're going to get to in a minute. since those are a little bit less priority and kind of like a good way to segue into the Avatar 3 creator, since that one does let you auto do hue shifts and matte swaps. I don't know why my brain decided to wait to do the manuals after, but that's what we're gonna do. So I apologize if it's a little out of order, but now that you guys know how to manually set up your toggles, like I said, I want to show you guys how to do it with AV3 Creator. So I'm going to go ahead and get that installed. Again, this is a paid for option. So it's not necessary for you guys to have it. It's just something that I find very useful and very helpful. But I do definitely recommend that you familiarize yourself with how to manually set up your toggles, just in case tools like this for doing it automatically ever break. So I will be right back once this finishes importing into my project. Okay, so AV3 Creator just finished installing. So if you come up here to AV3 Creator and you click on Advanced Toggle Creator, it's what we're gonna want. And we just drag in our avatar, which it has its descriptor, but since I went ahead and deleted everything that we found, it says that it's missing the FX parameters and main menu. If you had those, of course it would, register that you had already had those, so this menu wouldn't be popping up. But just in case you hadn't and you're using this from scratch from the start, it will pull up this, and you can just hit auto fix and it will automatically create stuff for you. Although I just realized that it was making things in the wrong folder. So click on this output directory where it has the folder and make sure to click, where you want it to create the things for you, which I want it to go into a folder called 3.0. Now if I click autofix, it makes my folder and it makes layers, parameters, and main menu, which are all right there. The reason it was doing the other one is because it does save in between projects. So since I was working on another project and the folder was titled Demon, it just stayed in that output directory. And so it does kind of like register between. So if you ever notice it, like it randomly created a folder that's not any folder that you had in there, that's not the name of your avatar, that's why, is it's probably just registering from a different project that you've potentially already used AV3 Creator in. You can set up dissolve settings. So I'm going to do the same thing like before. Oops, went too high. So I'm going to click this one and we're going to make it a goldish color and turn it down the width and hardness and emission. So you can set up your dissolve settings. If you have dissolve settings already set up, and you still want to be able to create dissolve toggles with AV3 Creator, you can just check mark this and it'll keep the dissolve settings that you set up, and it won't use like any of the other ones that we just set up. But if you didn't go through and set up dissolve settings on all of your stuff, like I didn't do it on all of them, I only did it on the one to show you guys, you can actually set it up here and it'll do that new thing for you. I also definitely recommend check marking this overwrite spot if it is unchecked marked. That's basically going to say that if you ever go through, like you made your choker toggle and with AV3 Creator, and then you wanted to fix something or you realized you messed up something whenever you were setting it up in here, you can come back through here and do whatever you need to and click create again, and it'll overwrite what it's already done. So I definitely recommend check marking that. Other than that, those are the only two things that I ever kind of mess around with. That is from a different avatar, so I'm just going to delete that. This is what it should look like for you. So to start, you're going to add your menu, and this is going to be the main menu, right? So let's add clothing. Parent on main menu. So this is going to create a sub menu called clothing, and I want it to save in a folder called menus. So I'm telling it to save there. We're going to create, and as you can see, it just created that. I also want a sub menu, called hairstyling, and I want that to be on the main menu as well. And then let's add a menu for, let's just call it customizing. And that's where I'm going to put like our hue shifts and our skin tones and all that kind of fun stuff. So I have my main menus here. So now we can go through and actually add our toggles. What I absolutely love about this is how simple it is. So for clothing, I think I want another sub menu on there. And I'm going to call it accessories. And I'm going to parent it on clothing, save in, and it automatically opens up the menu folder since that's where the clothing menu was. I'm going to create, and it's going to create that one. So while those are my main menus, and we will put toggles on some of them, we can also create a sub menu on a menu you just created. So accessories. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6, which is perfect because one menu lets you have 8. So let's go ahead and drag those. And the thing is, didn't mean to do that. That's very, very important. Very important is whenever you're doing stuff with AV3 Creator, it registers what you have toggled on as default, which is why I set her up to the outfit that I want her default to be. So there's not really much that's toggled off, but let's say that you wanted the belly piercing to be off by default. Then go ahead and make sure that that's turned off, because whenever we highlight it like this, you can drag and drop it in here. It automatically just made all those toggles, and it automatically registered what is default and what's not supposed to be. I went through and I was trying to understand when I first got it, like, okay, modules, toggle, enable, default, like all that kind of stuff, and it got really overwhelming and I confused myself a lot. If you want to kind of study it, go for it and kind of figure out what it does. And if you toggle this off and drag it in, like, what's the difference? Feel free to do that. I just find it a lot easier to have everything turned on that you want for default and off that you don't, and then just drag it in and let it do its thing. So, and of course you can always come through and change it under this modules toggle option, and you can change to disable when toggled, and that's again going to affect if it's default or not. It's going to affect a little spinny thing, whatever, but that's how you can just automatically make, make your toggles. So I'm going to also go ahead and drag in the other stuff, and then I'll explain a little bit more of what we can do. So I actually want all of those to be an option, and I think here on the main menu, I'm going to, let's go ahead and let's make it a sub menu. I think that would look a little bit nicer. I was thinking about putting the species just like as normal toggle straight from the main menu, but we have that. We'll do that in a second. So let's do our clothing, which is going to be our pants. And those 3. Okay. So now that we have all of our stuff like brought in as far as what is default and what's not, now we're gonna, I am so sorry if y'all can hear the dog barking in the background. One of my neighbor's dogs is just having an absolute fit. And I don't know if my mic is picking him up, so I know it picks up my super squeaky chair, so I apologize if you hear the dog. But now we're going to go through and we're going to set up our dissolves first, and then we're going to do something that I find really, really special, which is we're going to kind of fix up some of the on-off stuff and or the either or, and we're going to make it so that things that aren't supposed to stack don't stack, and I'm really excited for that part. One of my favorite things that I absolutely love about AV3 Creator is that it does that automatically for me. So to add dissolves, you're just going to extend down to modules right here. You're going to go to add module, click Poyomi, and click add. It's going to add it right here. This is for our pants. So we'll drag that into the target. And right here, it's going to pull up any material that you have assigned to that. So we only have the one material. You can change the duration if you want. You just check mark that, and then you're good. So we're going to do that on everything. Modules, Poyomi dissolve. This is for the gloves, and we're going to check mark the materials for it. And we're just going to go through and do this for every single piece because I want everything to be dissolve toggles, except for her hair. We're not going to put it on the hair. Okay, so I've gone through and set up everything to have Poyomi dissolve. So now we're going to go through and do some of the like either or stuff to where nothing stacks. And when I say that nothing stacks, I mean something like this doesn't happen. We don't want the ponytail on at the same time that the hair is on, which is what we had done earlier with making sure that that didn't happen. So we're going to pretty much do the same thing. So the baby hair, it can be on with either hair, and it's just if somebody doesn't really like the look of them. So we're going to do our hairs, and what this is going to be called a parameter driver. This is a little bit more advanced as far as setting it up manually, which is why I didn't cover it manually, and I just showed you guys how to do it through the animations. Parameter drivers manually is something I still struggle with myself. I still have to reference back my little notebook. I made down some notes that one of my friends taught me how to do it. So I'm not just the most comfortable with showing you guys how to do it manually because it's still not something that I fully wrap my head around each time. Sometimes I feel like I understand it, sometimes I don't. So, but it's pretty much the same thing, but it's just doing it through a different like way on the FX menu. So it's pretty much going to make sure that the hairs don't stack when they're not supposed to. It's just going to set it up through a driver instead of through the actual animation, which sometimes like it's a little extra for something just like 2 hairs, but whenever you have like 3 and 4 different clothing parts and some of them can stack with others and some of them can't, parameter drivers is super duper helpful for that reason, because it can get a little hectic. So if we extend down the parameter drivers, this is for the down hair. So we're going to look for where it says ponytail hair, and I'm going to click disable when on. So I am telling it that when the down hair is on, the ponytail hair is going to be disabled. So you can read it like this: ponytail hair is disabled when blank, when this, toggle the down hair is on. You can do all kinds of stuff. You can do it's enabled when on. So if you ever have like a hair bow, like a ponytail bow, and you want that to be able to be toggled, you can make it as a toggle, and then you can come down into the parameter drivers and you could find the ponytail hair and you'll say enable when on. So when the ponytail gets turned on, the bow automatically gets turned on with it. Or you could say disable when off, so that you could toggle off the ponytail, but whenever the ponytail gets turned off, the bow goes with it. So like there's all kinds of different stuff you could do. The mimic and inverse mimic I'm not the most familiar with, and this is why I suggested joining the creator server if you really want to start using this. There's all kinds of stuff this thing can do. It can make presets for you. It can do, like I said, on the supporter version, it can do like hue shifts and matte swaps, which we're going to do a matte swap, but I don't have the option for a hue shift. But it can set up, I know for sure, presets. So like you would hit a toggle and it completely changes the hair and outfit to whatever that preset is. I'm not the most familiar with that either because I haven't got to play around with that myself. But I would definitely recommend joining their server because there's all kinds of crazy cool stuff this tool can do, especially if you pay for the supporter version. And it's just a one-time payment too. It's not like a subscription or anything. So I've got those set up, and then the only other spot was for the clothing. The jacket and the gloves can't stack, so I need the gloves to disable when the jacket's on, and I need the jacket to disable when the gloves are on. So that should be set up. And let me think. I don't think there's anything else as far as like toggles go. So I'm going to come over to customizing, and I'm going to do a new toggle. I'm going to call it matte swap test. This is just as a test because I keep my matte swaps on decals, which has to be done manually. You can't do decal swaps through at least this version of the toggle creator. I think since the supporter version allows for hue shift, you most likely can do decals on there. I'm not too sure. But I just wanted to show you guys this, and I'm going to make it something stupid so that it's obvious. But we're going to go to add module. We're going to do material swap. You can also do blend shapes. So like we had for the hat, I've always kind of struggled to get it to work, but like I said, I'm not the most like overly proficient with this. So if we go ponytail hair, it is an animated blend shape. I think. Actually, I don't want it animated. I think this is all you need to do. Like I said, I've kind of struggled with it before, but I believe you click it and then you set it and you click the plus so that it's when the hat is... Oh no, this would be backwards because the hat is default. So default would be... I think. I might have that backwards. I don't know. I suggest playing around with this tool. It's super cool. But anyways, what I normally do is I'll normally just go through and make all my toggles, and then I'll go through the animations themselves, and that's where I'll go through and add all my blend shapes, just because I've kind of struggled to get it with this. But I think it's probably just because I have things backwards, like the true-false thing all over again. But that is something we could do. But anyways, so for the customizing, you could do modules, add module, material swap. We're going to add, and let's say body. Let's say you wanted to do like a skin swap. So you would, here's your body materials. It's just the one. So, okay, we're going to plus that. We want to change out the material that we named body, and we want it to be something else. So let's say if you had a second skin tone, you wanted to change it to that. I'm just going to make it change to metal so that it's something obvious. But you could do that for however many you wanted to. You could just keep adding. What was... Give me just a second. Okay, sorry for that cut there. I was remembering something, and I could not for the life of me figure out how to get it to work. So now that I've got it, I'm going to show you guys. So if you just have like one, swap. So let's say we wanted the body to change to metal. This is a horrible example, but this is just an example because my swaps are going to be done through decals, which we'll set up manually here in a minute. But if you only have one swap, you'll leave it like this. You'll just material swap, do exactly what we did. Throw in your mesh, click the material, throw it on, you're good to go. So I'm going to do radial. So if you have 4 or 5 different skin tones, 4 or 5 different hair colors, whatever, and you have them as actual matte swaps, and you wanted to automate them, you could do it as a float. And you're going to come through here, and you're going to do material swap, and let's say head, just so that it doesn't mess anything up. And we're going to do head. All right, and so we want the default to be this thing, right? We want it to be our normal material that we just selected. But then you can do add new option, and you can just keep freaking going. Go for as far as you want. But let's say we wanted it to change to all of these different materials. It just as a reference, I'm going to let it run through so that way you guys can see it. But you can set up matte swap radials like this. Like I said, you just can't do hue shifts unless you get the advanced version. But I do think that this is really, really helpful. The only thing is that these do require actual materials, so like duplicated materials that you would want to change instead of decals, which is what I have set up. The reason why I use decals is matte swaps are a little bit heavier performance-wise, and I have had it to where before I had a really, really hefty avatar, before I understood much about optimization, she had like 4 different outfits, 4 different hairs, like she had a lot on her. But I also wanted her to have a gazillion matte swaps and hue shifts. I wanted her to have all kinds of different like patterns and emission types and all kinds of different things. And one of my really good friends who is an expert in Unity pointed out that too many matte swaps can cause your avatar to break. So adding a few here and there is totally fine, but like full-blown like material swaps like this, if you start adding too many, it can start causing issues down the road. So if you've run into weird issues, of course, always reach out to creators or friends and ask. It might just be something small, but if it's like things are just truly bugging out, I don't really know how to explain it, and nothing else is the problem, I would suggest looking into how many matte swaps you have. If you have like 10, 20 matte swaps, your avatar is going to lag, and it's most likely going to cause bugs. So that's why I use decals. It's just a little bit more optimized. There's a few different ways that we can utilize decals, which will be the last part of this video. But I did want to show you guys how you can set up material swaps with with this, and I'll show you guys how to do it manually as well. But yeah, that's just one of the options. I thought that was really cool. So now that we have everything done, we've set up our dissolves, our material swaps. We've got our parameter driver set up. It gives you this notice: you have some materials that are currently locked. You have to unlock them before creating your toggles. The reason is because I have dissolve settings turned on, and my materials don't have dissolve settings on all of them. So it needs to unlock them first so that it can go ahead and add all of that stuff, and then it will lock it back so that it can actually work. So we're going to hit auto fix, and we're going to let it do its thing. And then we have everything set up, so we're just going to create. Yes, I want to create, and we're going to let it do everything that it needs to do. And the reason this tool is so great is not only is it making the animations for us, it's making the FX layers, it's making the parameters, it's making, see, you have to lock to dissolve for your dissolve to work. So you'll hit yes, and it's going to go through and lock them all. So it unlocked it, added what it needed to, and now it's locking it back so that it can work properly. It literally does everything. It does the FX layers, does the parameters, it does all those transitions. It sets up absolutely everything for you. It's such a great tool. It's frustrating in the sense that you really do need to try to get familiar with it if you're wanting to go through and fix things. Like if you're wanting to edit the parameter drivers or something, because it doesn't set things up how we would normally set them up. So the way it sets up stuff is a little bit different, and like it has stuff on different layers. Like I've looked through it, doesn't really make a whole ton of sense to me. So it's a bit harder to edit stuff, which is why I wanted to show you guys how to set things up manually, so that way so if you need to delete an auto created toggle, you can just go set it up how you need to. But it's also important to kind of play around with this tool itself to figure out like that, like I was saying earlier, like the default state and the disabled, on, off, and all the parameter drivers. That's why I leave on the overwrite option under settings on this thing. In case maybe I'm trying to like learn something and I set it up wrong, then I can go back through and fix it and tell it to create the toggles again, and it will overwrite what it already did and can continue on what it was doing. So everything is done now. So we literally can just jump straight into Gesture Manager and go test all of our new toggles, because if you remember, we deleted everything that we manually did. So her hair is doing the blend shape thing. Now the question is, will it stay that way? Aha. So we did set up the blend shapes properly through AV3 Creator. Cool. Still need to figure out why it's like, it's beside the point. And she's got clipping. Oh my goodness. Anyways, beside the point. So yeah, it set that up properly for us, and see, it's doing its little dissolve thing, which you can adjust the settings for that if you ever wanted to. We have our face mask, and I might go through and adjust the settings because I don't like how like instant it is. We have our socks and our shoes, which are that's the belly button. I really need to fix the clipping on those. I don't think I was fully awake when I set those up, but that's okay. That'll be the next video. We have our pants, our harness, our jacket, and our gloves. And then here, this is what I was talking about with the parameter drivers. I just love the, anyways, if we, that's what it was. Yeah, it was clipping with the harness, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, good to know. So if we hit our gloves, the jacket automatically went off while the gloves come on, and vice versa. or they can be toggled individually. So that's the really cool thing about parameter drivers, is how helpful it makes that. And then we have our hairstyling. We have our hair down. Ponytail went off. Ponytail hair. Now the only thing is we didn't set up a parameter driver to like tell them if both of them are like off. Like we didn't set it up the way that we did the first one, which I'll go back through and mess with that. But that way you can have a bald option. I don't know. I like leaving it on my avatars. My friends get a good kick out of it and it makes me laugh. So there we go. And then let's do our species real quick. Finish testing. There's our horns, which I love. Dissolve on those. Oh my goodness. Okay. And our wings. And our tail. Oops. Which is vibing. Back there. All right. So now we can look at our matte swap things that I was explaining a minute ago. So just the quick one matte swap for the bull. There it is. And then our radial matte swap, which is going to mess with the face. There we go. Changes to all these different weird materials. So I'm going to delete those because I don't need those. But let me delete that. Actually, I don't think I need that folder. Toggle. Let's see. Where is it? Matte swap. So something else that we can talk about for AV3 Creator is the menu. Let me delete both of these because I don't need that. So if we go back to our, and you'll see that since I dragged them in, it keeps the name. Let me open it again so you guys can see. It keeps the name of what it was dragged into. You can change this if you want to. You can change the name of whatever, and it'll go through and do it for you. Oh, it's not going backwards. Okay. But yeah, I would suggest that if you're going to change it after you've created it, to delete everything and let it re-add everything, because since you said overwrite and you've changed the name, it's going to make it as a second toggle. So it overwrites it if the name is the same thing. So do keep that in mind. So what we can do is something that we had talked about is, so we have the ponytail hair, down hair is disabled when on, right? But we can actually do enabled when off and come down here to the down hair and change that to enable when off. So that'll basically say that the ponytail will enable when the down hair is off. So that will fix the option of them not having, of them not being able to go bald. So that's how you could do that if you wanted to. But I like leaving it on for the memes and the giggles. I don't think there was really anything that I needed to adjust. I need to fix some clipping. But all my toggles worked as desired. I did maybe want to fix the duration of the dissolves. Like you could make it a little bit longer or shorter if you want to. But I think I'm going to leave it for now. I don't want to be too picky about that. So, yeah. That is AV3 Creator. So the last thing that we're going to talk about is hue shifts and manual matte swaps and decals. So let's go ahead and get started on that. Let's go over here and I'm going to make a new folder. Where is it? I lost it. Oh my gosh. Oh, there it is. Okay. And we're going to come in here and we're going to create some animations. So we're going to do skin tones. Radial. And then we're going to do, oh no, that's not what I wanted. Stop it. Skin tones one. There we go. Okay, the reason why I'm making a radial and the difference is I'm going to show you guys how I normally set it up. I don't know. I don't think technically it's like any more optimized than this other way. It's a lot to do with like how we did the hairs. So how we did the hairs on a radial, or how we did it to where it had like the like individual like toggles. We're gonna do the same thing but with the skin tones, which is kind of like playing into like the matte swap thing. One is just more time consuming versus the other, but one uses decals, one doesn't. So I want to show you guys both, and then we're also going to do our hair colors, which same thing, could be a radial or could be individually. I normally put them on a radial, and I'll explain why in a second. And then we're going to do, we want a emission. An emission hue. And we're just going to put it on a color hue. Since this is a public avatar, I don't want to make everything super duper individual, just because that would be really time consuming. I was thinking about maybe doing like a red hue, yellow hue, and a pink hue so that it could super mix and match, but I don't really see that being used, so I'm just going to put it all in as one, but I do like to keep the eyes and the hair separate. So I'm going to go ahead and hide her and get this one up, and we're going to make her a new controller. We're going to call this matte swaps, and we're going to toss that on there, and then we're going to go to our thing just like before and assign our animations. Something else very important with radials especially, you want to make sure that loop time is turned off for these like the hue shifts and stuff, because if you don't, basically once you set it all the way to like 99%, it's going to still be doing what it's supposed to, but once you click it over to 100, it's going to set back like as if it was set to 0. So if that ever happens, just turn off your loop time and you'll be good to go. So everything should be set up on my material, so we should be good to go ahead and start. But let's go ahead, click her, and let's get started. So I think we're going to start with the skin tones, so I can kind of show you guys, like, I feel like this and the hue shifts and everything, like, it's all kind of like one and the same, but it's also not at the same time. So I went through and added all of my skin tones as decals, and I think I showed this when I made materials, but if I didn't, I just turn on decals, put in the texture that you're wanting to use, and you make sure that you have renamed and alpha or animated when locked, both check marked, so it has this RA next to it on the alpha spot. You need that for every single decal. So for decals, so I want this to be her default skin tone, and then we're going to do, I am actually going to show you guys how to not do that. So we're going to actually make her start with the lightest skin tone, and then we're going to make her second skin tone, like we're going to go in order, but we're going to make the default be this skin tone instead of the super duper pale one. Just again, trying to stick a little bit more of how the original character was, and she had a little bit more of a tan. But that way it's still in, I'll show you guys, it's fine, don't worry about it. And then we're going to come over here, making sure that you are clicked onto your avatar. And I'll show you guys what we're doing in just a second. And why things are important. So we'll do her face in a minute, but if you notice, this first one has all the dots, while these other ones, it's like spread out. That's kind of important. I feel like some people might say it's not, but I find that it has caused issues if I don't do this before. So what you need to do is, like, this is supposed to be the default one, so this is set to 0, which is where that little dot comes from. But all these other ones, if you scroll down, like, you notice that they have values. To make sure that it's actually doing the decal that you want, you're going to want to make sure to turn everything else down to 0. So what I normally do is on each one, I'll say, okay, I want this one to be set to 1, and then I'll go through and tell every one of them to be 0. Right? So that one's 1. Even if this one's 0, I'm still upping it and then down so that it's recording that it needs to be at 0. and see the skin tone is more of what it's actually supposed to be. Ta-da! So now they're all consistent. And it goes whoop, 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 whoop. Now, the thing about decals is this looks great. But it has these white bars, and if we make them, if you tried to make them, since it's locked right now, I forgot I can't. If you tried to make it alpha, it's going to mess up your decals, so that won't work. But the only issue with decals is in between, since this, I mean, right now you can't see it, but whenever we get it on the radial, this is going to be like 25, 50, 75%, and then 100%. And on those in-between spots, it's going to get a little bit wider, and it's going to have almost like a white overlay to it, which isn't really ideal because it's not the true skin tone, which is why I'm going to show you guys how you could set up the skin tones to be more like straight toggles like we did for the hair earlier, which is going to be a matte swap, which again is a little bit more unoptimized, but it would keep it easier to stick to the actual skin tones. I will link a video down below of another creator, wonderful creator named Velvet, who made this glorious tutorial on how to set up a radial properly to where it goes smoothly in between each skin tone. I haven't gotten to like familiarize myself with that process yet, which is why I'm not including it in my videos, and I don't want to take away from her making the tutorial for it either. So I'm going to link that down below if that's something you guys want. I personally, oh, I'm so sorry, my phone went off. I personally leave it as decals instead of just a matte swap, because there's been a few times that, as weird as it sounds, I'll like that like kind of white overlay actually works perfectly for me to like find the right balance of the skin tone that I'm looking for, the hair color that I'm looking for. Because like for the hair, if I have white, black, and brown as my hair colors, I've watched my friends be able to use that like kind of white overlay to like find a perfect like dirty blonde for the avatar. And these are my own avatars, so I used the decals and they were able to like get the color exactly how they wanted to. So sometimes it actually works to have it like that, and sometimes it's better to just have it as a straight matte swap. So we will cover both, but before we do, I'll go ahead and finish this one off. I'm going to do her head material real quick. So this 1 to 1 with the rest at 0, and then we will do the like actual matte swap and hue shifts and everything else. So that one down, up. And normally I like time lapse this, but I'm actually gonna leave it right now. Oh, I'm so sorry. Wrong. I was wondering. I'm actually gonna leave it. There we go. Right now, just so that you guys kind of have like a repetition. But why is that face? I might need to import new face textures. Yeah, because they're not really matching up how I thought they did. Oh, there's one more. That one matches up really well, but the other ones don't, so I might have to import that. You can also like, you know, color adjust them in different programs if you need to, but they're a little off, except for that one and that one. So just these two. Okay. Good to know. I'll have to fix those later. But that is how we can set it up as decals, which works wonderfully. So the other way is you would actually have to go through on your materials and I am going to... What? I have questions. I have so many questions. What do you mean? Why didn't it keep those? How strange. Unlock those real quick. Okay, I was going to say, I hope it didn't unlock the other ones. Now it's doing. What is happening? Lock. How strange. How very strange. Okay. Unity is weird like that. It really is. That's why I always tell people. Unity is super weird. So you could use decals if you wanted to. What I would recommend is actually setting the texture that you want to be up here and like properly going through. That is one really, really good thing about skin tone swaps that aren't using decals, is you could go through and like properly set up the matte caps and the rim lighting and stuff to kind of better match each individual skin tone. But since this is just for example, I'm gonna keep using the decals. So we could go skin tones 1, and we're going to put in hello, ma'am. Ma'am? What? Okay. I have so many questions. I was not recording. Okay. It's fine. It's fine. Record. There we go. That's it. So whenever you're doing matte swaps, in the way that we're about to do it, you don't want like multiple frames or anything. You just want the one. So if we go to skin cones 2, which is technically the one that it's already at, I'm actually going to put something else on it so that when I record, it's understanding that it needs to be this one, right? And then 3, which these are all named backwards. I'm so sorry. I'm not worrying about the face right now because, again, this is just for examples. Oh, well, that's fine. It's beside the point. So it's going to be the same thing as the hair or like earlier. I'm not going to set up the radial one. I'll set this one up so that they don't like overlap and do funny things. But yeah, that's how you would need to set them up. If you wanted them to be like individual toggles, you'll need to make a new animation for each individual material swap that you want and record that material swap where it's just the only frame on that animation. So that is the ending point for like material swaps recording the animation per se. Since we have our radial and then we have the individual ones. So now we're going to go ahead and do the hair colors is going to be a decal radial just like the skin tones radial. I'm just going to do the same thing but for the hair colors, which the reason that this isn't changing right now is because it's on body 1 versus that was recorded on the body material. So that's super important too, is like just because it's the same mesh, it actually is recording off of the material and not the mesh itself. So but yeah, the hair swaps, we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to do a radial. So I'm actually going to change over to a hue shift. Let's do her eyes, just because I think that would be one of the easiest ones. So for hue shifts, it's a lot like the dissolves. You actually want to jump all the way over to that 1 full second and click on our mesh and find our material. And I'm going to change that hue shift all the way up to 1. And if we come down here, you notice that it's 0. So now, ta-da! Super duper duper easy to make a hue shift. Both of the emissions just use the base colors, so don't need to do anything when it comes to that. I will show you guys this. So like the emission hue isn't going to be the hue of the actual thing. I set this under the emissions. So the actual, like every few seconds or so, the mask goes more of like a solid white than it does the yellow. So that's why I wanted that to be on its own hue shift. Plus that kind of lets people, like if they want a red bra and they want to hue shift that to blue, but they want the emissions to be pink, then they can. So same thing, just only difference is it's down here under the emission spot. And you could even put a hue shift on your dissolve color if you wanted to. So I'm pretty sure, right? I thought you could. edge emission, edge color. I guess not. I thought that, oh, hue shift, it's right there. Okay, duh. Anyways, so it's the same thing. So the only difference is for things like this emission hue, you would need to go through and do it for everything. So I can't just do it on the one mesh because again, it goes by mesh. So I'm just going to start from the top and work my way down. And I'm going to click on everything and go to that emission spot. And I'm staying on the 1 second animation. The hat doesn't have one. Socks don't have one. I don't think the tennis shoes have one. They have a hue shift, but they don't have... Yeah. Okay. Panties, emission. So I'm just staying over here and cranking everything up to 1, and it's adding everything at that first animation to be 0. So let's go ahead and, oh, see now for this hue shift for the pants, I wanted them to start off as a different color than what the pants initially were. So I'm going to crank that up to 1, and it's defaulted. So it'll have like a not quite as wide range to hue shift, which is a little frustrating, but it's just kind of how it works because I didn't go through and color edit that, which I'll probably do later. I need to, oh no, that was on the spare one, so we're okay. So I'm almost done. Again, normally I would like just fast forward through this, but it's so quick. I just wanted to... I don't think this one has... Yeah, okay. So we're good. So that's it. So now everything that is emission based, that is that yellow, you see the bra, the mask, everything is changing, the pants, everything changes all at once. So super duper easy to do this kind of stuff. And then the same thing for the like color hue. So this is going to be a little bit different. This is going to be for like, let me come to the bra, for like the red and the pinks that I have. For not all of my materials are going to be able to go to this, but some of them will. So it's going to be the same thing, except I'm just hue shifting under that decal. And I'm going to want to do it for both decals, and then same thing for every mesh that I offered those decals to be on. I'll go through and add, and that will change that. And I think, what is this, harness? Yeah, since the harness and like the bra and stuff, their base color isn't, like there isn't any yellow on it. That's purely just the emission. I don't have to do anything else. But if it was like they actually put yellow down on the base color, that's where you would go into, it's not showing up right now because the material's locked, but you would go into like the color adjust. Oh, the shoes. Aha. Aha. So you could come into shoes and you could change it here if you needed to, which I think I'm probably going to put those on the like emission slider. I still need to figure out why those are broken. I will put that update in the materials description, like I said I would back then, but I recording these back to back, so I haven't had a chance. But so before I forget, I'm actually going to change over to the emission hue, jump up here, and I'm going to change that, so that way that yellow changes with everything else that is yellow as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it as far as like recording the animations. I'm going to finish going through and changing anything else that I have like the decals on and stuff. I don't know why those would. Did I add? Oh, I did. How interesting. Okay, I'm sorry. So I'm going to go through and like change. I'm going to finish recording all of my hue shifts on all of my decals and everything. And I'm just going to time skip ahead to, or time lapse or whatever I decide to do, to the whenever I'm done, and that way we can start setting it up in the FX layers. Okay, so I think I am all done with recording all of my hue shifts and decal swaps. I think editor me put up a note, but if I didn't, I completely forgot that you can select like control and click multiple meshes all at once whenever you're recording. And as long as they have like the same like decals on them, like and the same material, like this is all the hairs, they all only have the hair material and they all have the same decals and the same settings since it's the same material, then I was able to just go through and just do it once instead of having to click on each individual one like I did for the clothing. So I completely forgot to say that sooner. I am very, very sorry, but hopefully that helps save some time in the future. But everything is all done. I got all of my color swaps and hues recorded, so we are all set to move on and start setting up things on the parameters. So just like before, we're going to come into our parameters menu. We're going to change it to bool. I normally leave this open just so I can kind of like see what all I need to add. So I need a clothing swap. And I want the default to be 0, right? Because I need it to start at the beginning and then like move forward. Okay, so I recorded the hair hue, which I forgot to do, and I went ahead and added the rest of my floats. So just like before when we were doing the hair like mesh swaps, I'll just delete the layer that I don't need and reassign it so that a way I can show you guys or turn down the weight and show you guys the difference between the two different ways that we recorded these skin tones. And if you remember on the skin tones, I said that I wanted 0 to start at the lightest and then it goes all the way up to the darkest, but I wanted the default to be like the middle option. So since we have, I think 4, then it should be in 25s. And if not, you can always like pull up Gesture Manager and check to see what percentage. But I'm pretty sure that this default skin tone that I'm wanting it to be is 25%. So instead of letting the default sit at 0 on your parameters, you can type in 0.25. So it needs to be in decimals. And that should let it have this as the default. We'll see if I have the number correct. But just, yeah, same thing as before. Go ahead and set up all of your parameters. And then we're going to open up our FX. And as you can see, there's everything from AV3 Creator. And we're going to do the exact same thing as before. I'm going to open up my parameters and lock that so that I can see. And we're going to go through and add everything. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so now we have all of our layers added. So now we can go through and put in all of our animations. So with these, whether they are the matte swaps or the hue shifts, they're all radials. So it's going to be the exact same thing. We'll just toss that in. There it goes. Click it. Go to motion time and click our corresponding parameter. So I'm going to do that for everything except for the skin tones matte swaps. And then we will set that one up. Okay, so all of those are set up, and we were able to set those up just like we had before whenever we set up a radial. The exact same thing since all of them are on radials. And that's all we had to do. So we can move on to the skin tone matte swaps the way that I was explaining. So this is not going to be the radial. This is going to be the individual matte swaps, which is going to make it individual toggles. So it's just like the hair before, but I just wanted to be able to do it kind of again so that way you guys could see. Actually, I'm so sorry. I'm completely completely misspoken. We are not setting this up the same way as the hair. You can do that if you want to. If you want it to be individual toggles, set it up the same way we did as the hair, where you drag it all in as an integer and you go through and you click every single one. But this time we are actually, let me make sure that I set it up correctly. Yes, I did set it as a float. So this is how you can set it up as a radial without the like white overlay, and it's going to be an immediate swap in between each one. And I'll show you the difference of what I mean, so that way you kind of have an idea of what I'm talking about. So this time you're going to right click it and you're going to create state from new blend tree. Click that blend tree, double click it, and then you're going to click your parameter, and of course click the one that you assigned it for. And then right here where it says list is empty, you're going to do this plus sign, add new motion field. And you're going to add one for each one that you have. I have 4, so let's do 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you drag in your animations in the order that you want them. And it is going to automatically do its thing. Other than that, you don't need to touch it. So this is still going to be a radial, but it's going to be a different, like the radial is going to function a little bit differently than putting it all on one animation. Because if you remember, we made each individual skin tone its own animation and its own actual material, so it's a legitimate matte swap instead of using decals. So I will show you guys what I mean by that. So let's go ahead and go into Gesture Manager. We're going to test the skin tones things first, and then I'll show you the other toggles that we made. So I did get it wrong. Oh no, that was for the other one. I'm so sorry. So, oh, we didn't, never mind. Sorry, I forgot to set it up on the menu. Okay, so customizing. You can delete those. I will add the other ones here in just a second, but let's do this. There we go. So I've added it to my menu, so now we can go back and test it. All right, so if we come in here to customizing, and remember I only set this up on the body, this is what I'm talking about. So see how it automatically just boop, boop, boop. Ta-da, right? So that is the benefit of setting it up with each individual material, right? And then each material has its own animation. You can still put it on a radial, and it's just going to automatically cycle through. And now I'll show you guys the other way, which isn't technically as pretty, but it does work, and it's what we did for everything else. So let me get that set back up. If we go back, oh, and hold on. So this is the default avatar, and there's our default skin tone. So if you remember, we went through on the parameters and we set the default to be that 0.25. So now it is sitting at that middle spot on the radial, right? Which is the skin tone that we wanted it. So now they can go down if they want, or they can go up. And see, it is fluid, but that's why I want to link velvets. It's not quite as fluid. I don't know if you guys can see it, but like, see, it gets a little bit brighter and then it goes back to dark. And a little bit brighter and then a little bit brighter. So it has its benefits. I think the more fluid one that velvet sets up is a lot nicer. But I wanted to only make a tutorial on ones that I was super familiar with myself. So that's why we're not doing that in this tutorial, but I'll link hers below in case you do want something more fluid without it getting bright. But at the same time, sometimes I almost kind of like it, because like, what if somebody is like directly in between those, and that kind of, you know, tone versus that tone is more of what works for them. So that's personally why I leave it on my avatars. So it's totally up to you. I'm going to go through and set up the other menu items for the other color swaps and the hues that we did, and then we can test those together. Okay, so I've gone through and set up the rest of the hue shifts and swaps that we did with our decals, so now we can go through and test it. So if we go to hairstyling, or no, not hairstyling, sorry, customizing, we can do hair colors. And again, this is why I kind of almost like having the decals with the like white overlay, is because I only have white and black, but now someone can get like gray or like a darker white or a lighter or whatever. And then we have brown, and see, you can get kind of like a dirtier color if you want. And then it goes to red, and then it goes to pink. Right, and on the red and pink, I set it up to have hue shift. So on either one, it works for more pastel colors or more saturated colors. So those are set up. We have our skin tones, which we just saw. We have our eye hue. And then we go to clothing. And we go zoom out a little bit. Go clothing color. So that red or pink. And I forgot to turn off loop, so it snaps back, but that's okay. And then if you do have it on same thing, red or pink, you can hue shift either one for more pastel colors or saturated colors. And then of course our emission hue. So yep, I think that's it. Let me go back. Let me make sure that all these are turned loop time off, since those are my radials. So I'm going to delete the extra animations that I don't need. So yeah, I think that is it. So I think we are done with this tutorial. I don't think I missed anything. The only other not toggle that I need to do is the idle blinks and the idle wings, which I will make in a separate video. I will link that video down below in the description. Like I've said multiple times, I just don't want to put it in the tutorial series, since it's something that I see a lot of people asking for in multiple different servers. So I would rather that video stay separate from the tutorial series, so it's just a little bit easier for people to find. So I'm going to go ahead and record that right after I finish recording this, but let's go ahead and head over to our recap screen and wrap up this video. All right, so this video is very, very, very long. About as long as I thought it was going to be, so I am really sorry for how long it is. Like I've done on some of my other videos, I've sectioned everything up into different like timestamps down below, so you can fast forward and rewind and rewatch whatever you need to do for the type of toggles that you're looking to create. I hope that helps make things easier. I am really sorry that it's such a long video, but I wanted to cover as much as I could. And since there's so many different types of toggles and different ways that you can create them, I thought it would be easier to just keep it all in one video and let you guys fast forward or rewind as you see fit, instead of trying to separate it into multiple videos and it potentially, like, information gets lost in between, or I forget to say something in between, or repeat things too many times, whatever the situation may be. So I am sorry that it was such a long video, but I do hope that this video was helpful, and that you guys were able to learn a lot. As a little recap, we learned how to do manual toggles, we learned on off, either or, and different like radial types that you could use for meshes, like different hairs and stuff, as well as how to do multiple hairs, like 3 and 4 hairs that aren't on a radial, and that are either or that let it go bald or whatever. Like, we learned all kinds of stuff when it comes to that, and set up our toggles completely manually. And then we also covered how to set up toggles using the AV3 creator, and how you can use things like the parameter drivers and the blend shapes and the dissolve options on there. We of course still covered dissolve options on our manual toggles that we created, but that way you guys know how to do it manually, and you also now know how to use a really helpful tool that I absolutely love, but just in case it breaks or something, you know how to do it both ways. We also covered hue shifts and matte swaps, how to do that kind of with AV3. The version that I have doesn't have the option for hue shifts to be auto created, but that is an option for the advanced version. But we did set those up manually and through AV3 Creator. And then we talked about different ways you can do like the skin tones and have those be more smooth as a radial, or kind of have that like off-white look in between, which is totally a preference, and some people might absolutely hate it. It's something that I've just come to like on my avatars. I do find it a little bit annoying because it's a bit more, you have to pay more attention to the percentage to get the exact skin tone that's on there, but I do kind of also like having that little bit in between to kind of play with. But like I've said multiple times before, I will link a video down below to another creator's tutorial. Her name is Velvet, and she shows you guys how to set up skin tones on a radial that lets you get the in-between without it being more of like a white overlay in between. And it's more fluid of an actual color change between the skin tones, which I find absolutely beautiful and helpful and I absolutely love. And I'm planning on implementing that more into my avatars. I'm just not the most familiar with the process off the top of my head, which is why I did not cover it in this video. So if you want to know how to do that, please check out her video below and go give them lots of support. They make amazing tutorials and avatars and assets alike. Yeah, and then we talked about kind of testing your stuff with Gesture Manager. I did completely forget to show you guys how to test your avatar with the check moves tool in this tutorial like I was planning on it, but since this video was already getting extremely long and I still want to add the like idle stuff, and we still have to add like Go Go Loco and all that kind of stuff, and we of course have clipping that we have to fix in Blender already. I'm just going to go ahead and push that back to a different video. So I do apologize that is something that was planned for this video, but it's not. I'll try to remember to make a little note in the description so that way you guys know that if you're looking for that, it's going to be in one of the later videos. So I am sorry for that, but we will cover it, I promise. So we still have a few more videos in Unity, probably another 2 or 3. Just adding some of the last minute, like last little detail things. Of course, updating any clipping that we find in Blender and how to use some tools to update your avatar in Unity without having to redo everything. And then, yeah, just kind of finalizing everything, making sure we're good to go with the last minute things like Go Go Loco and stuff. So, the next few videos might be a little chaotic just because there's going to be a lot of little tiny things that we're going to be doing, but I'll try my best to keep it organized, and I'll still do the timestamps and stuff below so that it'll be easier for you guys to find what you need if you ever need to come back to the video. So sorry again for this video being as long as it was. I hope it was helpful. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know in the comments down below. The best way to reach me is by joining my Discord server, so you're welcome to reach out to me there as well. But I do check YouTube comments at least a few times a week. So I try to get to them as quickly as I can. And yeah, I think that's it. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.